performance evaluation also, they need to do minimum number of courses. We actually give 5 marks out of 100, which is not much, but even 5 marks also count. So unless you have done your minimum number of mandatory courses, you don't get those 5 marks also. So that is how I think all the staff was engaged. In fact, I had a few slides on how we engaged the staff also. The whole HRMS was digital. We introduced internal blogs called SBI Aspirations, where right from chairman down to our very senior people, they write regular blogs. They keep people informed of what is happening within the bank. So there are a lot of digitally things happening within the bank also.
You must talk about it.
I know. So I knew in 10 minutes, I thought there were a lot of other things to talk about. Maybe, yes, it's for a bigger topic, actually. Maybe we should really, bring to the public how we did the whole thing within the bank. Absolutely. No, but this particular presentation, I didn't want it to become SBI presentation, so I kept out most of those things.
Sir, I have a question. In the morning, we heard the Deputy Finance Minister, Mr. Jayant Sinha, and also Ma'am Arundhati Bhattacharya, that what didn't happen in last so many years, we got 25 new banking licenses. At the same time, we also heard that not a single payment bank has been able to figure out the real business model. And we hear from Mr. Deepak Gupta today that the nightmare for the bank CEOs that will Paytm take away all my customers tomorrow, while Paytm is also one of the recipient of the payment bank. So can you just, Mr. Gupta and you, I think it's in the larger interest of the economy that the payment banks and the small banks succeed. They didn't succeed, RRBs didn't succeed, small banks didn't succeed in the past. Doesn't mean we can't reinvent them and we can't give more new banks. So 2 or 3 important points how payment banks can really succeed in today's scenario.
You see, payment banks started by e-commerce companies which have a natural tendency for settling payments, they're going to do well because it's an adjunct to the business. Payment banks started by telcos, big telcos, they're going to do well because they already got millions of customers and they're used to making small payments to charge up your mobile phone, right? But payments banks started by other people who had no telco or an established base, or don't do e-commerce, or people like Paytm, they're going to have slight difficulty because the revenue model is not very sure. Everybody is betting on the fact that after 4 to 5 years, the RBI will open up retail lending to people who are on the payment banks, and that could be a source of revenue. Because when you have retail lending with credit scores and a good credit bureau, the risk does come down a bit. So right now, we have to wait and see.
Deepak Gupta.
In our case, it's not fair for me to say that payment banks will not succeed because we have a reasonable investment in one of the payment banks ourselves. But you see, the dilemma really of a payment bank is it has to earn only out of payment transactions. Normally, about 75% of a bank's income is arising out of lending. Very little out of payment. And generally,
only 5% is in payment space.
The revenue, from a revenue model, only about 5% comes out of payment. So how will a payment bank kick-start this, entire process? But it's not absolutely hopeless, mind you, because you see what the objective really is, and I can talk about, let's say, since Mr. Pai mentioned about the telcos, Bharti, for example, has 25 crore active customers. 25 crore active customers. Active customer, matlab, that customer goes to make a transaction that is a top-up on his mobile once every week. Now, can we convert this from a cash transaction, and it's essentially a cash transaction, into a payment transaction? A. And B, can I charge the customer for this? So there are 2 problems. First is, can I convert this into a bankable transaction? Because the moment I can convert this transaction into a bankable transaction, then I have a great story. Because once the customer is comfortable with this bankable transaction, he or she will use increasingly digital and mobile for all other transactions. So it's not just the mobile transaction which becomes bankable. It is the Kirana store transaction. It is the vegetable purchase transaction. It is the Kirana purchase transaction. It is, their purchase of seeds, their purchase of fertilizers. Everything goes digital. Because you're talking about 50% of the country still which are really not banked. Now, that is possible through mobile. Mobile can make it happen. Because the mobile penetration is phenomenal. All the slides which you saw, particularly, and if you look at the smartphone, the way they are. The issue really is, how will I earn out of this? The probability of earning out of the deposit is low, because at the end of the day, there won't be so much deposit out there. But can I earn out of the transaction? And that's why.
I think if I can just add, I think, see, why do you need the bank actually? See, till now, you actually needed the bank for depositing all your savings, okay? So before this digital thing really started, so once in a while you went to the bank, you withdrew cash earlier from the branches and subsequently from the ATMs, then you used that cash for making all the payments. So you didn't need the bank services very frequently because the cash was being used for each of the payments. Now when you start using digital payment system, so which means that you need to use that service for making payment frequently. Okay, so anybody who gives you the best payment experience would be the one people will start using ultimately. So which means that you need that service. Okay, so then when the payment service allows you to keep some balance also, so then I think there is a question mark whether you need the bank account at all. Okay, so I think that is the point which was there in his presentation, that till now you had a bank which offered you payment services. So we are moving to a system where you may have a payment services company which offers you the banking services also. So I think that is where the transformation.
Yeah, I'll come to a little bit of rescue of the payment banks here. Okay. What happens is, yes, it is transactions. Yes, it is the transaction intensity that will give revenue to the payment bank. But what also happens and what has been seen in study after studies is that for transaction to happen, balances should be there. And when transactions happen, balances are there. And when balances are there, transactions happen. So they're all interlinked. And we have seen enough situations, and I think that is what the RBI is also looking at, saying that, we are really a cash-rich economy and a cash economy. And that money is not earning income. That money is not earning interest, and it is losing value with time and inflation. So how do you move that into accounts? How do you move that into banks? And so that will create some value for that customer. At the same time, he starts doing transactions, and overall, hopefully, the transactions move from being cash into bank. At the same time, the cost of that transaction is going to be far, far, far lower for a payment bank than for existing banks. And that is really where the value is for the banks. Today, if you look at, Mr. Pai talked about 3% spread and 4% spread. That is sitting on 120 lakh crores. The cost of the bank systems today is about 300,000 crores. So that is sitting on top of the 400,000 crores profit. So we're talking about a 7% spread there. So does it really cost 7% to do a transaction for any person? It shouldn't. So how will that come down? And mobile is bringing down the cost. Mobile numbers are already 1 rupee 50 paisa and whatever. So how do you bring that cost down is really where a telco-based a payment bank can really come and add value. And it is in that scale, it is in that cost saving, and it is in the ability to convert the customer from cash to bank. That is really where the value is. There is no simple business model. There is no simple business model. It will be a complicated model, but I hope to see somebody succeeding at least.
Thank you. Okay, I think if there are no more questions, so maybe I can thank Mr. Pai, Mr. Gupta, and Mr. Sudhakar for the very lively discussion that we had. Thank you very much.
Before we actually close, I would request Mr. Chandan Bhattacharya, the chairperson of the Banking and Finance Committee, IMC, to present a memento to the chairperson of this session, Mr. Praveen Kumar Gupta, Managing Director, Compliance and Risk, State Bank of India. So please accept this as a token of appreciation and gratitude. I now request Mr. Gupta to present mementos, beginning with Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, Chairman, Manipal Global Education Services Private Limited, Mr. Deepak Gupta, Joint Managing Director, Kotak Mahindra Bank Limited, and Mr. K.R. Sudhakar, Chief Executive Officer, Online and Wealth, Aditya Birla Financial Services Group, and MD, Aditya Birla Money Limited. Well, it was indeed a fulfilling day. Well, thank you all for being lovely participants. This is Manasi taking your leave. Thank you all. Okay, I have a last announcement.